Okay, this video is for those who were not here for sheets P03, and you just work through these 7 worksheets. The first one is August 22 high temps. So last year, these are the high temperatures for each one of the days in the month of August. And you're going to use 3 functions to figure out what's the average of these numbers, and what's the highest and lowest. That's funny. So anyway, it's all formulas begin with an equals, and the function here is average. You want to average all these numbers in this range. It starts at B3 and goes down to B33. Notice that the IntelliSense even pops that up. So you can accept that by hitting enter. Now it has a lot of decimals. You can reduce that by going here and clicking on that. The hottest, well, that's the highest, and that function is called max. That will return the highest number in a range, B3 to B33. And then the lowest number would be min, same range. And so that's all you had to do on that one. And when I look at your sheet, I want to see that there's functions there, not just hard entered numbers. The next item is 999 random numbers between 1 and 100. If you do command down arrow, you'll go all the way down to the bottom there, and you can kind of see the last number there. If you do command up arrow, you're back at the top. Again, I want to find the average here and place that answer in C2, so it's equals average. And in this case, the range is A2 to A1000. I have in the sheet here 999. It's not really, it's really 1,000. So there's the average. Let me just change this real quick. And so to count the number of ones, how many times each the number 1 was appeared, and so on, and then how many hundreds are there, how many 50s are there, and how many 7s. It's all with the count if statement, okay? And so it's this, it's equals, count if, and it takes 2 arguments. First argument is the range that you're looking at. This is A2 to A1000. You place a comma there, and then what are you looking for? What the occurrences of the number 1. So you put the number 1 there in right parentheses. It will tell you how many 1s there are. In this case, there's 12 in this data. To do the same thing again, I could certainly just copy this code, come down here, and I can now count the number of 100s there are. And I would just add 2 zeros here, so it's now going to count how many hundreds. And it turns out there's also 12. Kind of crazy, right? How many 50s are there? And so again, paste that in, change this to 50. And this will count how many 50s there are. There were 17. And then I asked for 7s, how many 7s there are. So you just change that to a 7, and there's your answer to that. And that's all you had to do on this one. And again, I'm looking for formulas here. The next one is military expenditures. I don't know if you've heard the phrase where, the United States spends more money on its military than the next so many countries combined. Well, here are the top 10 spenders of military by country. United States leading the way. This is actually in billions, so this is 778 billion, a quarter less than $1 trillion. All right, so in cell A at E15, which is this guy right here, enter the appropriate formula to add up the totals for countries 2 through 10. So that's a sum function, and the range is really this C5 down to C13. But here's what you can do. You can just go click here and drag down, and it'll do the formula for you, C5 to C13, do a right paren, and then hit enter. And this figure right here is the total of all these numbers, and they are less than what the United States spent. I think this is 2020 data. So the United States, according to this data, spends more on its military than the next 9 countries combined. Also on this sheet, make a correctly titled pie chart of the spending by all the countries listed. So to do that, you start at B3 and highlight down to C13 and insert a chart. And this one needs to be a pie chart. And in here you can see that the pie chart definitely displays that the United States In this instance is 52% of this pie, so it's pretty crazy. To give a title to it, I would just come up here, grab this guy, copy it, double click here, and and paste that in. And if you wanted to add this is 2020, you certainly could. And try to arrange this so I can still see the formula that you use for that one, factoring in the 9 countries. So something like this would be just fine. Differences in temperatures. Well, the two highest and the one highest, one lowest recordings in the world. The hottest is Death Valley, and the coldest was a place in Antarctica, and there are the years. They were both in July. What's the difference between these two hot and cold temperatures? Using a formula and cell references, enter the appropriate formula in cell B7 to display the numerical difference between the low and high temperatures. Here's how you would go about doing that, or one way. You type in equals, you click on this cell, and you say, I want to subtract what's in that cell from what's in this cell. And there's the difference. It's 262.6 degrees, which is pretty astounding range of temperature in the Fahrenheit scale. Here I ask, how is it possible both the high and low temps occurred in the same month? It's because this is in the southern hemisphere, this is in the northern hemisphere. So in the month of July, this is actually the winter of Antarctica, and it's the summer of the northern hemisphere. So that's how that could occur. You don't need to write anything. Colorado state budget is the next one. And we're first going to sort the data, and then we want to make a pie chart out of it and answer what's the largest budget item and the 5th largest budget item. So you highlight A and B, and to sort it, data, sort range, advanced range sorting options. You're always going to be having a header row. You want to sort by that money, largest to smallest. So you can see that the number one expenditure in Colorado is our education. And the 5th one is corrections. Corrections, which is jails and stuff like that, prisons, okay? And then I need a pie chart of this data that kind of shows the breakdown of this. And something like this would be fine. This is the Colorado budget breakdown 2022 in our state legislature. And so that would be just fine there for that, okay? You can see that education takes up a pretty big portion of this. So that's all you have to do on that chart. And again, I'm sorry, or on that sheet. It'd be nice if this was moved off to the side so I can still see your answers. Looks like I have 2 of these for some reason. So I can still see the answers. All right, 2 more charts. In cell D2, use the formula to divide B2 by C2 and multiply that by 100. Use the fill handle to copy that formula down to the other cells. Then sort the data by what is in column D, Z to A, and then chart the top 10 states based on the data in column D. So this should actually be here. Sorry, they got moved. So let's do this one first. Top 5 state GDP. Sorry about that. This is the gross domestic product for each state. This is the total of their goods and services. Basically shows you the wealth of the state in terms of what it produces in services and goods each year. But then I'm going to ask you to sort the data by GDPs and provide on the sheet a properly titled column chart of the top 5 states. Well, they're probably going to be our larger states. So right now it's sorted by alphabet, by state. We want to sort this by GDP. So data, sort range after you highlight both columns. I do have a header row. I want to sort by that money, largest to smallest. And you should see that the top 5 states are these guys right here. You highlight those, and I need a column chart of this. This is GDP. top 5 states in the GDP. And so California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, not shocking. Now, the next last chart here, last slide, is the same piece of information, but now I've added population. And here's where I want to take this, and I want to take what's in this cell, divide it by what's in this cell, and then multiply it all by 100. And if I hit enter, I get something like this. Now it's going to want to autofill the others, and you can certainly just hit this check mark and it'll do it. I'm going to purposely say no to that. And what I'm going to do, and here the formula is here again, right there, is to reduce the decimals, get that straightened out. And then to drill that down, I could certainly pull the fill handle down. That's one way to do it. A better way is just to bring your mouse right over this little tiny blue square. That's called the fill handle. And when you put your mouse in the right place, you'll get a crosshair for a cursor. Double click. And that'll fill out all the others, okay? So what's happening here is you're dividing the GDP for the state by the number of people in the state. And this is a way we can now compare state to state a little bit more accurately in taking into account population. So how much wealth is in the state and how many people are in it, okay? So let's sort this data to sort by per person. So we highlight all 4 columns. And data sort range. It has a header row. We want to sort by per person Z to A. So now the top 5 state or top 10 states, I think is what we're looking for in the column chart here, is all the way to Colorado. All right. And here are the corresponding per person figure that we came up with. It's just a way to really see what's happening. So to make a chart of this, you highlight from A1 to A11, that's the top 10 states. Hold down the command or control key on a Chromebook and highlight down here, okay? And so now I've got my states and the GDP for it per person, okay? So you're just basically factoring in the population. So now if I look at this, and this should be a column chart, is here are the 10 states. Now nobody's less than, I believe, 6 here on this chart right there. So I can take the y-axis, double click on these numbers, and then come over here. Let me move this over a bit. And you want to go to minimum value and change that to 6 and hit enter, and you got something that looks like this, a little bit better. And so this is the chart I'm looking for. Again, I would title this properly. This is basically, sorry, I'll do it over here. Top 10 states. I can't type today. Top 10 states. GDP factoring population. So we're taking into account the size of the state. And so I have something like this. Top 10 states factoring population, GDP. Again, this is 2020, I believe. Could be 2021. It's 2021. So I'll go there. And that's what we're looking for. And so I'm looking for some charts, and make sure you use formulas and you turn this in and it's all good. So thank you for your time today.